The old wooden chair creaked as Tom Blake shifted nervously in Principal Watson's office. The 16-year-old boy kept his eyes down, staring at his worn sneakers while the principal shuffled through papers on his desk. The office smelled like old coffee and disappointment. "Tom, this is the third time this month," Principal Watson said, his voice sharp with anger. He was a heavy man with gray hair and thick glasses that made his eyes look bigger than they were. "Breaking into the computer lab after hours is a serious offense." Tom finally looked up. His brown hair was messy from running his hands through it, and his clothes were simple, just a plain t-shirt and old jeans that his mother had patched at the knees. "I wasn't breaking anything, sir. I was just using the computers." "Using them without permission?" Watson slammed his hand on the desk, making Tom jump. "Do you know how expensive that equipment is? Those computers cost more than your father makes in a whole year." The words stung because they were true. Tom's father, Bill Blake, worked there. Small farm from sunrise to sunset, but money was always tight. The family's old computer at home was so slow it took forever to load even simple programs. But Tom needed something faster, something powerful enough to handle the complex calculations he was working on. "I was careful with them," Tom said quietly. "I never damaged anything." "That's not the point." Watson stood up, walking around his desk to tower over the boy. "You broke the rules. You sneak around like a thief. What kind of example does that set for other students?" Tom wanted to explain why he needed the computers, wanted to tell Watson about the strange signals he had been tracking, about the energy, readings that didn't match anything in the science books. But he knew the principal wouldn't understand. Nobody would believe that a farm kid could discover something important. The door opened, and Mrs. Johnson, the secretary, poked her head. "In. Mr. Watson, Tom's father is here." "Send him in," Watson said, returning to his chair with a satisfied look. Bill Blake walked into the office, his work boots heavy on the floor. He was a tall, thin man with calloused hands and tired eyes. His clothes still had dirt on them from the morning's work in the fields. He looked uncomfortable in the fancy office, like he didn't belong there. "Mr. Blake," Watson said without standing up, "please sit down. We need to discuss your son's behavior." Bill sat in the chair next to Tom, placing a gentle hand on his son's shoulder. "What happened this time?" "Your son has been caught breaking into our computer lab repeatedly," Watson said. "He uses school property without permission, stays after hours when he should be home, and shows complete disrespect for authority." "Tom?" Bill looked at his son with worried eyes. "Dad, I can explain," Tom started. "There's nothing to explain," Watson interrupted. "This behavior cannot continue. The school board has made their position clear. We cannot tolerate students who think rules don't apply to them." Tom felt his heart sink. He had been afraid this day would come, but he had hoped. He could finish his research first. The energy patterns he had been tracking were becoming clearer each night. Just a few more weeks and he might have had enough data to prove what he suspected. "What are you saying?" Bill asked, though his voice suggested he already knew. "I'm expelling Tom from Riverside High School, effective immediately," Watson said. He opened a folder and pulled out official-looking papers. "This decision is final." The room went silent except for the tick of the old clock on the wall. Tom felt like the world was falling apart around him. Without access to the school's computers, his research would have to stop. All those months of work, all those late nights trying to understand the mysterious signals, would be wasted. "Sir, please," Bill said, his voice breaking slightly. "Tom is a good kid. He gets the best grades in his class. Maybe there's another way. Mr. Blake, your son's grades don't matter if he can't follow basic rules," Watson said coldly. "We've already given him too many chances. The Morrison family, who donated money for our new computer lab, specifically asked that we crack down on unauthorized use. Tom knew about the Morrison family. They owned the biggest business in town and had 3 kids at the school. Their youngest son, Rick Morrison, was in Tom's grade but barely passed his classes. Everyone knew the Morrisons expected special treatment because of their donations. "Can we appeal this decision?" Bill asked desperately. Watson shook his head. The board has already voted. Tom needs to learn that actions have consequences. Maybe this will teach him some respect. Bill stood up slowly, his shoulders sagging with defeat. He couldn't afford a lawyer or a private school. Tom would have to finish his education somewhere else somehow. Come on, son, Bill said quietly. Let's go home. Tom gathered his backpack, which contained notebooks filled with calculations and observations that no one else would understand. As they walked toward the door, Watson called out one last time. Mr. Blake, I hope you'll teach your son that the world doesn't owe him anything. Hard work and following rules, that's how people succeed in life. Tom turned back, his young face showing a determination that surprised the principal. You're wrong about me, Mr. Watson. And someday, you'll know it. Outside in the parking lot, Tom and his father walked to their old pickup truck in silence. The school building looked different now, like a place where Tom no longer belonged. Other students were getting out of classes, laughing and talking about weekend plans that Tom would no longer be part of. I'm sorry, Dad, Tom said as they drove away from the school. I know I disappointed you. Bill looked at his son with sad but loving eyes. You didn't disappoint me, Tom. I just wish I understood why those computers were so important to you. Tom stared out the window at the familiar fields and farms. How could he explain that he had discovered something amazing, something that might change everything? How could he tell his father that those energy readings suggested something incredible was hidden right under their own land? Maybe someday I can show you, Tom said quietly. As they drove home, neither of them noticed the small aircraft flying high overhead, its advanced sensors recording their conversation and tracking their route. In a corporate office hundreds of miles away, a computer screen showed Tom's latest calculations, and a very important man leaned forward with great interest. The expulsion that seemed like the end of Tom's future was actually just the beginning of something much bigger than anyone could imagine. The sound came first, a deep rhythmic thumping that grew louder and louder. Students in their first period classes pressed their faces against windows, trying to see what was making the noise. Teachers stopped talking mid-sentence, confused by the distraction. Then they saw it. A sleek black helicopter descended from the morning sky like something from a movie. It was bigger than the news helicopters that sometimes flew over town, with no markings except for small numbers on its side. The aircraft circled Riverside High School once before settling down on the football field, its powerful rotors whipping grass and leaves into the air. Principal Watson was in his office, drinking his second cup of coffee and reading through budget reports when Mrs. Johnson burst through his door without knocking. Sir, you need to see this, she said, her voice high with excitement. There's a helicopter on our football field. Watson looked up from his papers, annoyed. What are you talking about? Come look. Mrs. Johnson grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the window. Watson couldn't believe his eyes. The black helicopter sat in the middle of their football field like it owned the place. Students were gathering at windows and doorways, pointing and taking pictures with their phones. Some were even sneaking outside to get closer. Who is that? Watson muttered, watching as the helicopter's door opened. A man stepped out, and even from a distance Watson could tell this was someone important. The stranger wore an expensive dark suit and moved with the confidence of a person used to being in charge. He was tall and slim, probably in his 40s, with short brown hair and sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything around him. Two other men in suits followed him, but they hung back like bodyguards, while the first man walked straight toward the school building. He didn't look around at the staring students or confused teachers. He walked like a man with a mission. Get security, Watson told Mrs. Johnson, but she was already on the phone. The stranger reached the main entrance just as Watson hurried down the hallway to meet him. Up close, the man looked even more impressive. His suit probably cost more than Watson made in a month, and he had the kind of calm, powerful presence that made people pay attention. Principal Watson? The stranger asked, extending his hand. I'm Marcus Reed. Watson shook the offered hand, trying to place the name. It sounded familiar, but he couldn't remember where he'd heard it. Mr. Reed, I don't know what this is about, but you can't just land aircraft on school property without permission, Watson said, trying to sound authoritative. Reed smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. I think you'll want to hear what I have to say. It's about Tom Blake. Watson felt his stomach drop. Tom Blake? He doesn't even go to school here anymore. I expelled him yesterday. Yes, I know, Reed said. That's exactly why I'm here. Word spread through the school faster than fire. Students whispered in hallways about the mysterious helicopter and the important-looking man who had come asking about Tom Blake. Teachers tried to keep classes going, but everyone was distracted. In Watson's office, Reed sat in the same chair. Tom had occupied just one day earlier. But unlike the nervous farm boy, Reed looked completely comfortable, like he belonged anywhere he chose to be. Mr. Reed, I still don't understand who you are or why you're interested in a troubled student like Tom Blake, Watson said, settling into his chair behind the desk. Reed pulled out a sleek tablet and tapped the screen. I'm the CEO of Reed Technologies. We specialize in advanced computing, artificial intelligence, and space research. Perhaps you've heard of us? Watson's eyes widened. Reed Technologies was one of the biggest tech companies in the world. Their CEO was worth billions of dollars and appeared on magazine covers, and he was sitting in Watson's small office asking about a farm boy. You're that Marcus Reed, Watson stammered. I am, Reed said simply. And Tom Blake is not a troubled student. He's quite possibly one of the most brilliant minds I've ever encountered. Watson laughed nervously. Tom Blake? You must be mistaken. He's just a farm kid who breaks rules and thinks he's smarter than everyone else. Reed's expression grew cold. Mr. Watson, for the past 6 months, my company's AI systems have been monitoring global computer networks for unusual patterns of problem solving. We track young minds that show exceptional ability in mathematics, physics, and logical thinking. Turned the tablet around, showing Watson screens full of complex equations and calculations. These are Tom's work. He's been using your school computers to solve problems that graduate students at MIT struggle with. His understanding of advanced physics is remarkable for someone his age. Watson stared at the screen, not understanding any of the complicated formulas. That can't be right. Tom never took advanced physics. We don't even offer it. He taught himself, Reed said. Using online resources and basic textbooks, he figured out concepts that normally require years of university study. More importantly, he's been applying this knowledge to real-world research. What kind of research? Watson asked, though he was starting to feel sick. Reed put the tablet away. That's between Tom and me, but I can tell you that his work has caught the attention of some very important people in the scientific community. There was a knock at the door and Mrs. Johnson entered with several other people, the vice principal, the head of the school board, and Mr. Morrison, the wealthy donor whose family Watson was always trying to please. What's all this about a helicopter? Mr. Morrison demanded. He was a short, round man who liked to throw his weight around. You can't just let people land aircraft on school property. Reed stood up and faced the newcomers. Gentlemen, I'm Marcus Reed, CEO of Reed Technologies. I'm here about a serious matter involving one of your former students. Mr. Morrison's angry expression changed when he recognized the name. Reed Technologies had contracts with the government and employed thousands of people. Even a man like Morrison had to show respect. What can we do for you, Mr. Reed? Morrison asked in a much more polite tone. You can explain to me why you expelled the most gifted student this school has ever had, Reed said calmly. Tom Blake's work shows exceptional promise, and I came here to offer him opportunities that could change his life. The school board. Members looked at each other nervously. They had all approved Tom's expulsion without really thinking about it. Mr. Reed, the vice principal said carefully, Tom Blake was expelled for breaking school rules. He used computer equipment without permission. Reed's eyes flashed with anger. He used computers to advance human knowledge. While your students play games and browse social media, Tom was solving problems that could benefit all of mankind, and you punished him for it. The room fell silent. Everyone could feel the power and authority radiating from this billionaire who had flown here personally to defend a farm boy they had thrown away. I want Tom Blake readmitted to this school immediately, Reed said. Furthermore, I'm prepared to make a significant donation to upgrade your computer lab and establish a scholarship program for gifted students. Watson's mouth fell open. The kind of donation Reed was talking about could transform their entire school. But first, Reed continued, I need to speak with Tom. I'm offering him something much better than what you can provide here. The question is whether he'll accept it. Morrison stepped forward eagerly. Of course we can arrange that. Tom is welcome back any time. No, Reed said firmly. You had your chance to recognize his potential, and you failed. I'm not here to help you save face. I'm here to give Tom Blake the opportunities he deserves. Reed walked toward the door, then turned back one last time. Gentlemen, you expelled a student who could someday change the world. I hope you can live with that decision. As Reed left the building and walked back toward his helicopter, students and teachers watched from every window. The powerful rotors began spinning again, lifting the black aircraft into the sky. But instead of flying away, the helicopter turned toward the farmland outside town, toward the Blake family's small property where a brilliant boy was probably working in the fields, not knowing that his entire life was about to change forever. Tom was fixing a broken fence post when he heard the helicopter. The sound made him look up from his work, shading his eyes against the bright morning sun. The black aircraft was flying low over their farm, circling like it was looking for something. Dad, Tom called out to his father, who was working near the barn. Someone's coming. Bill Blake dropped his tools and walked over to stand beside his son. They watched as the helicopter settled down in their biggest field, the one closest to the old oak tree where Tom had built his homemade radio telescope. Who do you think it is? Bill asked, worried. After yesterday's troubles at school, he was nervous about any unexpected visitors. Tom didn't answer. He was staring at the helicopter with a strange feeling in his chest. Something about this felt important, like his life was about to change again. The aircraft's door opened and a man in an expensive suit stepped out. Even from a distance, Tom could tell this person was different from anyone who had ever visited their small farm. The man walked toward them with purpose, his eyes scanning the property like he was studying everything. Mr. Blake? Tom Blake? The stranger called out as he approached. That's us, Bill said cautiously, stepping slightly in front of his son. The man smiled and extended his hand. I'm Marcus Reed. I believe we need to talk. Tom's eyes went wide. Everyone had heard of Marcus Reed, the billionaire who owned one of the biggest technology companies in the world. But why would someone like that be standing in their farmyard? Mr. Reed, what brings you to our place? Bill asked, shaking the offered hand. Reed looked directly at Tom. Your son has some very impressive talents. I've been monitoring his work through our computer systems. Tom felt his face go red. You mean, you know about the calculations I was doing at school? I know about all of it, Reed said. The energy patterns you've been tracking, the mathematical models you created, the conclusions you've been drawing. Frankly, Tom, your work is remarkable. Bill looked confused. What work? Tom, what is he talking about? Tom shifted nervously from foot to foot. He had never told his parents about his research because he didn't think they would understand. Dad, I've been studying some strange signals I picked up with my radio telescope. Your what? Bill stared at his son. Tom pointed toward the old oak tree. I built it from old TV parts and stuff I found. It's not much, but it works. And for months I've been detecting these weird energy readings coming from underground. Reed's eyebrows went up. You built a radio telescope? May I see it? The three of them walked over to the oak tree, where Tom had assembled his creation. It looked like a collection of metal scraps and old electronics, but Reed examined it carefully, his expression growing more impressed by the minute. This is incredible, Reed said. You built this yourself? Yeah, Tom said, gaining confidence. I know it doesn't look like much, but it can pick up signals that regular radios can't detect. Reed pulled out a device that looked like a tablet, but was much more advanced. He pressed some buttons and the screen lit up with complex displays. Tom, show me exactly where you've been detecting these energy readings. Tom led them to a spot about 50 yards from the house, near an old well that hadn't been used in years. Right here, he said. The signals are strongest in this area. Reed held his device over the ground and it began beeping rapidly. His face went pale as he stared at the readings. Dear God, he whispered. What is it? Bill asked. Reed looked up at them with excitement and disbelief in his eyes. There's something massive buried under your farm. Something that's generating energy signatures unlike anything we've ever seen on Earth. Tom felt his heart racing. I knew it! I knew there was something here! Tom, how long have you been tracking these signals? Reed asked urgently. About 2 years, Tom said. At first I thought it might be some kind of natural phenomenon. But the patterns are too regular, too organized. It's like there's intelligence behind them. Reed nodded slowly. Your instincts are correct, this isn't natural. He looked at Bill. Mr. Blake, with your permission, I'd like to bring in some equipment to investigate this further. Bill looked overwhelmed. I don't understand what's happening here. Dad, Tom said gently, I think we might have discovered something really important, something that could help our family. Reed put his tablet away and faced both of them seriously. Gentlemen, I believe there's an artificial structure buried beneath your land. Based on these readings, it's been here for a very long time, possibly thousands of years. You mean like buried treasure? Bill asked. Much more valuable than treasure, Reed said. This could be archaeological evidence of an advanced civilization. The technology generating these signals is far beyond anything humans have created. Tom's mind was racing. You think it's alien? Reed smiled. That's exactly what I think. And Tom, your mathematical analysis of the energy patterns has been helping us understand how it works. The three of them stood in the middle of the field, the weight of the discovery settling over them. Tom had always felt like there was something special about their land, something that made him feel connected to mysteries bigger than their small farm. What happens now? Bill asked. Reed looked around the property with new eyes. Now we find out what's down there. But I want to make something clear. This is your land, and any discoveries made here belong to your family. I'm here to help, not to take anything away from you. Bill felt tears in his eyes. After years of struggling to make ends meet, after watching his brilliant son get expelled from school, suddenly the world was full of possibilities he had never imagined. Tom, Reed said, I originally came here to offer you a scholarship to an elite school. But this changes everything. You've made what could be the most important discovery in human history. Tom looked at his father, then at Reed, then at the ground beneath their feet. Somewhere down there, something was waiting. Something that had been sending signals into space for longer than anyone could guess. Mr. Reed, Tom said quietly, I think this is just the beginning. Reed smiled and pulled out his phone. I'm calling in a full research team. We're going to need geologists, archaeologists, and some very special equipment. He paused and looked at Tom with respect. And we're going to need you, Tom. You're the only person who truly understands these energy patterns. As Reed made his calls, Tom and his father stood together in their field, watching their quiet farming life transform into something extraordinary. The strange signals Tom had been tracking were about to reveal secrets that would change not just their family, but possibly all of humanity. In the distance, more helicopters were already appearing on the horizon, carrying the team that would help uncover whatever lay buried beneath the Blake farm. Tom smiled, knowing that being expelled from school had led him to this moment, the moment when everything changed forever. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus Reed's arrival, and the Blake farm looked like a completely different place. Large, white tents covered the excavation site, and sophisticated equipment hummed day and night. Scientists from around the world had come to help dig up whatever was buried beneath the ground. Tom stood at the edge of the main excavation pit, amazed by what they had uncovered. The structure was enormous, made of a dark, smooth material that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing faintly with a soft blue light that pulsed in rhythm with the energy readings Tom had been tracking for years. It's incredible, said Dr. Martinez, the lead archaeologist. She was a small woman with gray hair who had spent her life studying ancient civilizations. This structure is at least 10,000 years old, but the technology is more advanced than anything we have today. Reed walked up beside Tom, holding a tablet that showed the latest scan results. We've mapped about 30% of the structure so far. It extends deep underground, possibly several miles down. Whatever this is, it's massive. Tom nodded, but his attention was focused on the symbols carved into the alien surface. Something about them seemed familiar, like a half-remembered dream. The mathematical patterns in the glowing marks reminded him of the equations he had been working on. "Mr. Reed," Tom said quietly, "I think I can read some of these symbols." Reed and Dr. Martinez both turned to stare at him. "What do you mean?" Reed asked. Tom pointed to a section of the wall where the symbols seemed more organized, like writing. "Look at the way they're arranged. It's similar to the mathematical sequences I found in the energy patterns. I think they're trying to communicate." Dr. Martinez frowned. "Tom, this is an alien language. It would take years of study to even begin understanding it." But Tom was already walking closer to the wall, his eyes following the glowing symbols. As he approached, something strange happened. The symbols began pulsing faster and new patterns appeared as if responding to his presence. "Did you see that?" Reed said excitedly. "The structure is reacting to him." Tom reached out slowly and placed his hand on the smooth surface. The moment his skin touched the alien material, everything changed. Light flooded through the symbols, and Tom felt a rush of information flowing into his mind. Not words, but pure understanding. Images flashed through his consciousness, vast cities among the stars, beings of incredible intelligence traveling between worlds, and Earth as it was, thousands of years ago when early humans were just learning to use tools. "Tom!" His father's voice called out. Bill Blake was running toward the excavation site, worry written all over his face. "Get away from that thing." But Tom couldn't move. The information kept flowing, showing him the history of an ancient civilization that had explored the galaxy millions of years ago. They had visited countless worlds looking for something special, a species with the right combination of curiosity, creativity, and intelligence. The aliens had left monitoring stations on promising worlds, waiting for the native species to evolve enough to find and activate them. Earth was one of those worlds, and humans were the species they had been waiting for. "Tom, can you hear me?" Reed was saying, but his voice sounded far away. The alien database was vast, containing knowledge about energy sources that could power entire civilizations, medical technologies that could cure any disease, and the secrets of traveling faster than light between the stars. But most importantly, it contained a test, a way to determine if a species was ready for such advanced knowledge. Tom saw now why the structure had only responded to him. The aliens had been looking for minds that could think in ways that purely logical beings could not. Humans had something unique, the ability to make intuitive leaps, to understand patterns without fully analyzing them, to solve problems through creativity rather than just calculation. The test was designed to find individuals who combined high intelligence with this special human intuition. Tom had passed the test without even knowing he was taking it. Slowly, the flood of information slowed, and Tom became aware of his surroundings again. He was still touching the alien wall, but now he understood what he was touching. It wasn't just a structure, it was a library, a gift left by an ancient race for whoever might be worthy of inheriting their knowledge. "Tom," Dr. Martinez was shaking his shoulder. "Are you all right? You've been standing there for almost an hour." Tom blinked and looked around. The sun had moved across the sky, and more people had gathered around the excavation site. His father was there along with Reed and several other scientists he didn't recognize. "I'm okay," Tom said, though his voice sounded strange to his own ears. "But I know what this is now." He turned to face the group of scientists and government officials who had come to investigate the discovery. "This isn't just an alien artifact. It's a test and it's a gift. The beings who built this traveled the galaxy looking for species like us, species with the right kind of intelligence to inherit their knowledge. Reed stepped closer. What do you mean, inherit their knowledge? Tom smiled, still feeling the vast database of information humming in his mind. They're gone now, the race that built this. They died out millions of years ago, but before they disappeared, they left behind everything they knew, hoping that someday another species would find it and continue their work. Dr. Martinez looked skeptical. How can you possibly know all this? Because they told me, Tom said simply. When I touched the wall, their database connected with my mind. I can access their information now, but more importantly, I can understand how to use it safely. The implications hit everyone at the same time. If Tom was right, humanity had just inherited the knowledge of the most advanced civilization in galactic history. What kind of knowledge? Asked Dr. Peterson, a physicist who had arrived from the government research facility. Tom looked up at the sky where stars were becoming visible in the gathering dusk. Everything. How to heal diseases that we thought were incurable, how to create unlimited clean energy, how to travel to other star systems. He paused. How to take our place among the intelligent species of the galaxy. Bill Blake put his arm around his son's shoulder. Tom, are you sure about this? Tom nodded. The aliens, they called themselves the Builders. They've been waiting for us. Not just for humans in general, but for individuals who could think the way I think. There aren't many of us, but there are others. Reed was already making notes on his tablet. How many others? A few hundred around the world, Tom said. People who can connect with their technology the way I just did. The Builders designed their system to work only with minds that have the right combination of intelligence and intuition. As if to prove his point, the alien structure suddenly came fully alive. Lights began flowing through channels carved into its surface, and a low, harmonic sound filled the air. Other buried structures around the world were activating too, Tom realized. The test was complete, and humanity had passed. Dr. Martinez stared at the glowing alien technology in wonder. This changes everything we thought we knew about human history, about our place in the universe. Tom smiled and looked at his father. Dad, remember when you said the world doesn't owe us anything? Well, it turns out the galaxy has been waiting to give us everything. The Blake family farm had become the center of humanity's greatest discovery, and Tom, the farm boy who had been expelled from school for being too curious, had become the key to unlocking humanity's cosmic inheritance. 6 months later, Tom Blake stood in what used to be his family's cornfield, watching as construction crews put the finishing touches on humanity's first interstellar research facility. The simple farm where he had grown up was now the center of the most important scientific project in human history. The alien structure, which Tom had learned to call the Archive, rose from the ground like a dark crystal mountain. Its surfaces still pulsed with that gentle blue light, but now human-built walkways and laboratories surrounded it, creating a bridge between alien technology and human understanding. Tom, the delegation from Japan has arrived, said Lisa Park, Reed's assistant, who had become the facility's coordinator. They're ready for the demonstration. Tom nodded and walked toward the main building which housed the control center for their operations. At 17, he looked older than his age, carrying the weight of knowledge that few humans could understand. But his eyes still held the curiosity and wonder that had driven him to build a radio telescope from scrap metal. Inside the control center, representatives from a dozen countries waited to see the latest breakthrough. Tom had spent months learning to safely extract information from the archive, and today he would show them something that would change transportation forever. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom said, standing before the group of scientists and government officials, 6 months ago I was expelled from high school for using computers without permission. Today I'm going to show you how to travel faster than light. He activated the holographic display system that reads, engineers had built to interface with the alien technology. 3-dimensional images filled the air, showing the design for a spacecraft that could fold space around itself, allowing it to cross vast distances in the blink of an eye. Dr. Chen, the lead physicist from the Chinese delegation, leaned forward in amazement. The energy requirements, how is this possible? The builders solved the energy problem millions of years ago, Tom explained. They learned to tap into what they called the deep current, the fundamental energy that flows through all of space. With their technology, we can power entire cities using devices no bigger than a car engine. President Miller's science advisor, Dr. Roberts, raised her hand. Tom, how do we know this technology is safe? We're talking about forces we barely understand. Tom smiled, remembering when adults used to dismiss his ideas. Dr. Roberts, that's exactly why the builders left the archive. They knew that any species, advanced enough to find it, would also be wise enough to use it carefully. The database won't release dangerous information until we prove we can handle simpler technologies first. Marcus Reed, who had become like a second father to Tom, stood up from his seat in the back. Tom showed them the medical applications. The holographic display changed, showing detailed scans of human DNA alongside alien biotechnology that could repair genetic damage at the cellular level. The implications were staggering. Diseases like cancer and Alzheimer's could become things of the past. The builders had bodies similar to ours, Tom explained. Much of their medical knowledge can be adapted for humans. We're already testing treatments that could extend human lifespan by centuries. Ambassador Williams from the United Nations shook his head in wonder. This is beyond anything we imagined when we first heard about your discovery. Tom's father, Bill Blake, entered the room carrying a tray of coffee for the visitors. He still insisted on helping with simple tasks, even though his family had become the wealthiest landowners on Earth. The government had paid them billions for the rights to study the archive, but they had chosen to stay on their farm and oversee the research personally. Dad, you don't need to serve coffee, Tom said gently. Bill smiled. Son, I've been taking care of visitors to this farm my whole life. Fame and fortune don't change who we are. Dr. Martinez, who had become the facility's chief archaeologist, pulled up new data on her tablet. Tom, we've received confirmation that the archives in Egypt and Peru are fully active now. The teams there are reporting similar breakthroughs. Tom nodded. Around the world, other buried structures had awakened in response to the activation of the main archive. Each one contained specialized knowledge, some focused on environmental restoration, others on space exploration, and still others on technologies that humanity wasn't ready to understand yet. How many others like you have we found? Asked Dr. Roberts. 47 so far, Tom said. People who can directly interface with the builder technology. We call ourselves interpreters. Most of us are young. The builders seem to prefer minds that hadn't been limited by too much conventional education. The demonstration continued for another hour, with Tom showing them plans for cities that could float in the clouds of Venus, robots that could terraform Mars, and communication systems that could send messages across the galaxy instantly. Each revelation brought gasps of amazement from the assembled delegates. As the meeting ended, Tom walked outside to his favorite spot, the old oak tree where he had built his first radio telescope. The tree was still there, now surrounded by the most advanced research facility on Earth, but somehow it felt like a connection to the simpler time when he was just a curious farm boy. Principal Watson appeared on the path leading from the parking area. He walked slowly, his head down, looking much older than he had 6 months ago. The story of Tom's discovery had made international news, and Watson had become famous as the man who expelled the most important teenager in human history. Hello, Tom? Watson said quietly when he reached the tree. Hello, Mr. Watson, Tom replied politely. What brings you here? Watson looked around at the incredible facility that had grown up around them. I came to apologize, and to ask, would you consider coming back to give a speech at our school? The students would love to hear from you. Tom considered the offer. Part of him wanted to be angry, to remind Watson of how he had been treated. But the knowledge he had gained from the archive had taught him something important about forgiveness and moving forward. Mr. Watson, I'm not angry anymore, Tom said. Getting expelled led me to spend more time on my research, which led to all of this. Maybe everything happened exactly as it was supposed to. Watson's eyes filled with tears. You're a better person than I am, Tom. I should have seen your potential instead of just seeing a troublemaker. Tom smiled. I'll come speak at the school. And Mr. Watson, I want you to know that we're starting a new program to identify other young people with unusual abilities. Kids who think differently, who don't fit into normal educational systems. We want to give them the chances they deserve. As Watson walked away, Tom looked up at the stars that were becoming visible in the evening sky. Soon, humans would be traveling to those stars, meeting other intelligent species, taking their place in the galactic community that the builders had once belonged to. His phone buzzed with a message from Reed. Tom, the president wants to meet with you next week. They're ready to announce the space program publicly. Tom smiled and typed back, Tell him I'll be there, but I'm bringing my parents. We're all in this together. The farm boy who had been expelled for being too curious had become the bridge between humanity and the stars. And this, Tom realized, was just the beginning of the greatest adventure in human history. In the distance, the archive pulsed with its gentle blue light, holding the knowledge of 1,000,000 worlds and waiting patiently for humanity to grow wise enough to inherit the galaxy.